Many people spend their lives waiting for motivation or the right mood before they take action. As a result, important goals and dreams often remain out of reach, and confidence in ourselves quietly fades away. It's all too common to let feelings decide what gets done, but this approach rarely leads to the progress or satisfaction we want. Take Action, Stop Caring How You Feel was written for anyone who is tired of letting moods, doubts, or lack of energy set the pace for their life. I have seen firsthand how easy it is to believe that you need to feel motivated before you start, only to get stuck in a loop of waiting and wishing. The truth is, feelings come and go, but your future depends on what you do, not how you feel. This book will not ask you to ignore your emotions or act like they don't matter. Instead, it offers simple, clear steps to help you act, even when you don't feel like it. Inside, you'll find practical tools to help you get started on hard days, build habits that last, and finish what you set out to do. You'll learn how discipline can become stronger than motivation, how to set clear standards for yourself, and how to take the smallest next step, even when you're tired, anxious, or Through these pages, you'll discover how to separate action from mood and how to build trust in yourself by following through. You'll learn that discomfort is not a sign to quit, but a signal that you are growing. You'll see that real change doesn't require perfect conditions, just a willingness to begin, no matter how you feel. If you are ready to stop waiting for motivation and want to finally move forward, this book is your starting point. The first step is always the hardest, but every step after gets easier. Let's begin. Chapter 1, Wake-Up Call. You've been lying to yourself. Not with words, with silence. Every time you said, "I'll start tomorrow," every time you chose the couch over the call, the scroll over the session, the safe over the scary, you voted. And the tally is in. You've been electing comfort as president of your life, while your potential sits in the back row, quiet and forgotten. Here's the truth you already know but haven't admitted. Your feelings have been running the show. They decide when you work, when you rest, when you try, when you quit. If you feel motivated, you move. If you feel off, you delay. That sounds reasonable until you realize it's the exact system keeping you stuck. Feelings are weather. They change hourly, and you've been treating them like gospel. This chapter is your wake-up call. Not the gentle kind with soft music and gradual light, the kind that slaps you awake because the building's on fire and you've been sleeping through the alarm. The fire? Your life is passing while you wait to feel ready. And spoiler, ready never shows up on time. The real enemy isn't laziness, it's permission-seeking. You don't think of yourself as someone who needs permission. But watch your behavior. You check your mood before you act. You scan your energy levels. You ask yourself, do I feel like doing this right now? And when the answer is no, which it usually is, you bail. You've turned your emotions into a gatekeeper, and that gatekeeper says no to anything hard, uncertain, or uncomfortable. This isn't a personality flaw, it's biology. Your brain evolved to conserve energy and avoid pain. That's how humans survived when food was scarce and danger was real. But now, that same system is sabotaging you. It treats a difficult conversation like a predator. It treats a workout like a waste of precious calories. It treats starting your project like a threat to your safety. So it whispers, "Not today. You don't feel like it. Wait until you're ready." And you listen, because it feels true in the moment. But here's what your brain won't tell you. Behavior changes feelings far more reliably than feelings change behavior. When you act first, your mind adapts. Confidence follows action. Clarity follows movement. Energy follows effort. But when you wait for the feeling first, your life shrinks. Your goals get smaller. Your ambitions become jokes you tell about back when I was younger. What you're actually choosing. Let's be clear about what's happening when you say, "I don't feel like it." You're not making a neutral observation. You're making a choice. You're choosing comfort over commitment. You're choosing the short-term relief of avoidance over the long-term reward of progress. And you're choosing to stay the person you are instead of becoming the person you want to be. Every time you skip the hard thing, you're training yourself. You're teaching your brain that feelings are in charge. You're reinforcing the pattern. Discomfort equals stop. And that pattern becomes your identity. You become someone who starts strong and fades fast. Someone who has great ideas but no follow-through. Someone who's trying but never quite doing. The cost isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's the project that never launches, the skill you never build, the relationship you never repair, the body you never transform, the business you never start. It's the slow erosion of self-respect that happens when you break promises to yourself so often that you stop believing your own word. And here's the kicker. You know this. You've felt it. That sinking feeling at the end of another wasted day. That quiet shame when you realize you're in the same place you were last year. That frustration when you watch someone else do the thing you keep planning to do. You know the cost. You just haven't decided it's too high yet. The line between winners and losers. Winners and losers aren't born. They're built through daily choices. And the dividing line is simple. Winners act regardless of how they feel. Losers wait for feelings to cooperate. Winners say, "It's on me." Losers say, "Life got in the way." Winners treat bad days as tests they can pass. Losers treat them as permission slips to quit. Winners focus on the next action. Losers focus on finding the perfect moment. Winners protect their standards even when it's uncomfortable. Losers protect their comfort even when it kills their standards. This isn't about talent. It's not about resources or luck or circumstances. It's about one decision, repeated daily. Do you move or do you wait? Do you honor the plan or do you honor the mood? You've been waiting, and waiting has gotten you here. Reading a book about how to stop waiting. That's not an insult. It's a mirror. And what you do next will determine whether this book becomes another thing you tried or the moment everything changed. What this book will do for you. By the time you finish this book, you'll have a new operating system. You'll see your patterns clearly, the moments when you routinely bail on yourself, the excuses that sound logical but are really just fear wearing a suit. You'll learn to ask, what's the next action, instead of how do I feel about this? You'll start judging your days by what you did, not by how you felt doing it. Over time, if you keep practicing what's in these pages, action will become normal and hesitation will become the exception. You'll experience fewer internal battles because execution becomes habitual. Projects that once felt impossible will become just what you do now. You'll feel a quiet, stable confidence that comes from trusting yourself to act. Your average days will become more productive than your former good days. People will start to rely on your consistency, and you'll shift from "I'm trying to be disciplined" to "I'm a disciplined person." That's not hype. That's what happens when you stop negotiating with yourself and start respecting your own word. The path forward. The steps are simple. First, you stop asking feelings for permission. You notice "I don't feel like it" as a cue to move, not a stop sign. You act on pre-decided plans instead of momentary moods. Second, you install discipline through schedule. Simple, repeatable blocks of time for your most important actions. You treat those blocks like appointments you can't miss. Third, you remove negotiation. You define a few non-negotiable rules and catch internal arguments early, replacing them with immediate movement. Fourth, you start small to create momentum. Tiny first steps overcome emotional inertia. And fifth, you embrace discomfort. You see it as training, not punishment. Every hard rep is a vote for your stronger self. These steps are in this order for a reason. You must break emotional permission before discipline can stick. As long as feelings are in charge, no system will work. You use early, small actions to prove you can move without emotional approval, then build from that proof into structured discipline. Discipline needs non-negotiables to hold under pressure because flexible rules collapse during stress. And momentum plus discomfort turn steps into identity. Small, repeated wins generate momentum. Discomfort hardens your identity as someone who acts anyway, and that identity carries you when everything else feels shaky. The choice is yours. This isn't a motivational speech, it's a contract. You versus you, standards versus feelings. The version of you that waits for perfect conditions versus the version that moves anyway. One of those versions is reading this right now. The other is the person you'll become if you act on what you read. The next chapter will show you exactly how your feelings lie to you and how to stop obeying them. But before you turn the page, make one decision. Are you reading this to feel inspired, or are you reading this to change? Because inspiration fades, change requires action, and action starts now, not when you feel like it. What you do in the next 5 minutes will tell you everything you need to know about which version of yourself is in charge, the one who waits or the one who wins. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Feelings Lie. Your brain is a liar, not maliciously, not intentionally, but a liar nonetheless. And the biggest lie it tells you is this: trust what you feel right now. You've been trusting that lie your entire life. When you feel anxious about making the call, you believe the anxiety means something's wrong. When you feel tired before the workout, you believe your body needs rest. When you feel uncertain about the decision, you believe you need more information. But here's what you haven't considered. What if those feelings aren't telling you the truth? What if they're just noise? Static from an outdated survival system that has no idea what you're actually trying to build. This chapter is about learning to hear the noise without letting it control the signal. Because once you understand how feelings actually work, you'll stop treating them like orders and start treating them like weather. And weather doesn't get to decide whether you show up. The invisible trap you're living in. There's a pattern running your life that you probably don't even notice. It goes like this. You check how you feel, then you decide what to do. Feel motivated? You work. Feel tired? You rest. Feel confident? You reach out. Feel uncertain? You wait. This seems logical, reasonable even, but it's a trap. The trap is this. You're waiting for your emotions to give you permission to act. And emotions are terrible gatekeepers. They're designed to protect you from immediate threats, not to help you build a meaningful life. Your brain evolved in an environment where conserving energy meant survival and taking risks meant death. So your emotional system is biased, heavily biased toward comfort, safety, and the familiar. It overestimates danger, it underestimates your capability, and it treats uncertainty like a predator stalking you in the dark. That's why fear feels so convincing. That's why I don't feel like it sounds like wisdom. Your emotions are running an ancient program that says, if it's hard, avoid it. If it's uncertain, delay it. If it's uncomfortable, escape it. And every time you obey that program, you reinforce it. You teach your brain that feelings are in charge. You build an identity around waiting for emotional permission, and that identity keeps you stuck. The real problem isn't that you have feelings. The problem is that you've confused feelings with facts. You think I feel anxious means this is dangerous. You think I feel unmotivated means I shouldn't do this now. You think I feel tired means I need to stop. But feelings aren't facts. They're signals. And signals can be wrong. The myths that keep you waiting. Let's kill a few myths right now. The first one, I just need more motivation. You've been chasing motivation like it's the missing ingredient. You watch videos, read quotes, listen to podcasts, hoping to feel that spark. And sometimes it works. For a day, maybe 2. Then it fades, and you're back to waiting for the next hit. Here's the truth. Motivation is a bonus, not a requirement. It's nice when it shows up, but it's not necessary for action. Treating motivation like a prerequisite is like waiting for perfect weather to go to work. It's a rigged game. The real move is to stop asking, how do I get motivated, and start asking, what's the next action? Because action creates momentum. Momentum creates clarity, and clarity creates the feeling you were waiting for in the first place. The second myth, if it feels bad, it must be wrong. This one is sneaky because it sounds like self-care. You've convinced yourself that discomfort is a red flag, a sign you're off track or forcing something that isn't meant to be. But growth always feels uncomfortable at first. Learning a new skill feels awkward. Having a hard conversation feels scary. Pushing past your limits feels exhausting. That's not misalignment, that's expansion. And if you keep running from discomfort, you'll never expand. The third myth, I'll move when I feel ready. This is the most dangerous one because it sounds so reasonable. You're not procrastinating, you're just waiting for the right time, the right energy, the right headspace. But here's the secret. Ready is a feeling that shows up after you start, not before. You don't feel ready, then act. You act, then feel ready. Waiting for readiness is just procrastination wearing a nicer outfit. What feelings actually are. So if feelings aren't facts, what are they? They're fast, biased feedback loops designed for survival. Your brain takes in information, runs it through a threat detection system, and spits out an emotion. That emotion is meant to guide immediate behavior. Run from the lion, rest when exhausted, avoid the cliff. It's a brilliant system for staying alive in the wild. But it's a terrible system for building a career, a body, a business, or a life. Your emotional system doesn't care about your goals. It cares about keeping you safe and comfortable right now. So when you think about doing something hard, your brain scans for threats. It finds uncertainty, effort, potential failure, and possible discomfort. Then it floods you with feelings designed to make you stop: anxiety, doubt, fatigue, resistance. And those feelings are real. You're not imagining them, but they're not telling you the truth about what's actually safe or dangerous. They're just trying to keep you in the familiar zone. This is where cognitive biases come in. Loss aversion makes you overvalue what you might lose and undervalue what you might gain. Status quo bias makes staying the same feel safer than changing, even when staying the same is killing you. Negativity bias makes one bad outcome feel more significant than 10 good ones. Your brain is wired to see threats everywhere and rewards nowhere. And if you let that wiring run the show, you'll spend your life avoiding imaginary dangers while real opportunities pass you by. The skill you need to build. The skill isn't to stop feeling, it's to stop obeying. You need to build space between the feeling and the action. That space is where your power lives. It's where you get to choose based on your values, your commitments, and your long-term vision instead of your short-term emotional weather. This is called emotional detachment, but that term gets misunderstood. Detachment doesn't mean you become cold or robotic. It doesn't mean you suppress your feelings or pretend they don't exist. It means you acknowledge the feeling without letting it dictate your behavior. You can feel scared and still press send. You can feel tired and still show up. You can feel uncertain and still take the next step. Think of it like this. Feelings are a coach yelling from the stands. They're loud, they're opinionated, they think they know what's best, but they don't get to call the plays. You do. You're the one on the field. You're the one who decides what happens next. The coach can yell all they want, you still choose the move. Here's a simple exercise to start building that space. When you notice resistance, pause for 5 seconds. Name the feeling in plain language. I feel anxious. Don't argue with it. Don't try to fix it. Just acknowledge it. Of course I feel this. It makes sense. Then immediately take one small planned action anyway. Open the document, dial the number, put on your shoes. The action doesn't have to be big, it just has to be next. What you're doing is training a new reflex. Instead of feel then do, you're practicing feel and do. You're teaching your brain that feelings can exist without controlling behavior. And the more you practice this, the weaker the emotional veto becomes. Eventually, you'll be able to feel the full force of fear, doubt, or resistance and still move forward like it's nothing. Not because the feelings went away, but because you stopped treating them like authorities. The shift that changes everything. The shift happens when you stop asking, how do I feel? And start asking, what's the next action? This sounds simple, but it rewires everything. When you check your mood before you act, you're handing control to a system that doesn't care about your goals. When you focus on the next action, you're taking control back. Catch yourself doing the mood check. Notice when you're about to start a task and you pause to scan your internal state. That pause is the trap. That's where you give feelings the chance to talk you out of it. Instead, shrink the decision to the smallest possible step. What's the next action? Not the whole project, not the perfect plan, just the next move. Then do it before your brain builds a case against you. Another powerful tool, pre-commitment. Decide your key actions when you're calm, the night before, during weekly planning, whenever your head is clear. Write them down, treat them as already agreed upon. Then, when the time comes, don't renegotiate. Let past you make the decision. Present you just executes. This removes the emotional debate from execution time. You're not deciding whether to do it. You're just doing what you already decided. What happens when you get this right? When you start separating feelings from actions, everything changes. At first, you'll just notice you're following through more often. You'll stop canceling plans on yourself. Small mood swings won't derail your entire day. You'll have fewer "I'll do it tomorrow" moments. That's the good outcome. Keep going, and you become emotionally aware but behaviorally steady. You feel emotions fully, you're not numb, but they don't dictate your choices. People start seeing you as consistent and dependable. You execute big moves while scared, unsure, or anxious. You stop waiting for confidence and start building it through action. That's the excellent outcome. The best outcome? You become functionally emotion-proof in your execution. Your internal life can be messy, feelings swirling, doubts screaming, fears flashing, but your external actions stay on course. You become the rare person who acts without waiting to feel like it, and that makes you dangerous. Not to others, to your old limits. One warning before you move forward. There's a trap on the other side of this skill. Some people learn to ignore feelings and then use that as an excuse to ignore real problems. They dismiss all discomfort as irrelevant, even when something is genuinely off. They miss red flags, ignore boundaries, and push through legitimate warnings because they've decided feelings lie means feelings don't matter. That's not what this is. Feelings do matter. They're data. Sometimes they're pointing at something real. The skill is learning to evaluate them with logic and evidence, not just speed. If you feel anxious about a decision, don't automatically obey the anxiety, but also don't automatically dismiss it. Ask, is this fear protecting me from real danger, or is it just protecting me from discomfort? Is this doubt based on evidence, or is it based on unfamiliarity? Give yourself a minute to think, then act based on what's true, not what's loud. The next chapter will show you how to build the structure that makes action automatic, even when feelings are screaming. But that structure only works if you've mastered this chapter's lesson first, because no system survives if emotions still have veto power. So here's your move. The next time you feel resistance, name it, acknowledge it, then act anyway. Do that once today, just once, and notice what happens after you move. Chapter 3, Discipline Wins. You already know motivation is unreliable. You felt it spike on Sunday night when you plan your perfect week, then vanish by Tuesday afternoon when the work gets hard. You've ridden that wave enough times to know it always crashes. So why do you keep waiting for it to save you? Here's what you haven't fully grasped yet. Motivation isn't the engine. It's the music playing while the engine runs. And the engine, the thing that actually moves you forward day after day, week after week, year after year, is something else entirely. Something you've been avoiding because it sounds boring, restrictive, and way too much like work. That engine is discipline. And before you roll your eyes and think, I've heard this before, let me be clear. This isn't about becoming a robot or punishing yourself into productivity. This is about building a structure so solid that your feelings can't knock it down. Because right now, your life is built on sand. One bad mood, one rough morning, one unexpected disruption, and the whole thing collapses. Discipline is the foundation that holds when everything else shakes. The real reason you're inconsistent. You think your problem is lack of willpower. You think if you just had more self-control, more mental toughness, more grit, you'd finally be consistent. But that's not it. Your problem is that you're making too many decisions. Every day, you wake up and decide whether to work out. You decide whether to start the project. You decide whether to make the call. You decide whether to follow through or give yourself a pass. And every single one of those decisions costs energy. Psychologists call it decision fatigue, and it's why you can start the day strong and end it scrolling mindlessly. You've burned through your decision-making fuel on 1,000 tiny choices, and by the time the important stuff shows up, you've got nothing left. Discipline fixes this by removing the decision. You don't decide whether to do the thing. You just do it because it's time. The decision was made once, in a calm moment when your head was clear. Now you're just executing the plan. No debate, no negotiation, no checking your mood to see if you're feeling it today. You show up because that's what you do at this time, on this day, every week. Period. This is what people miss about discipline. They think it's about forcing yourself to do hard things through sheer willpower. But real discipline isn't force, it's automation. It's turning the important actions into non-negotiable parts of your day so they happen whether you feel inspired or not. And once that automation is in place, consistency stops being a battle and starts being a baseline. Why structure feels like freedom. There's a myth floating around that discipline equals misery. That structure is a prison. That routines kill creativity and spontaneity and joy. People who believe this are usually the same people who spend their days reacting to whatever feels urgent, scrolling to fill the gaps, and wondering why nothing meaningful ever gets done. Here's the truth. Chaos is more stressful than structure. When your day has no plan, every moment becomes a decision point. What should I do next? Is this the right thing? Should I keep going or switch tasks? Am I wasting time? The mental noise is constant, and that noise drains you faster than any workout or work session ever could. Structure silences the noise. When you know exactly what you're doing at 9 in the morning, you don't waste energy debating it. You just start. When you have a fixed routine for your most important work, you don't spend half your day wondering if you're doing enough. You know you are because you followed the plan. And when the work is done, you can actually rest without guilt because you've already handled what matters. Discipline doesn't kill freedom, it creates it. You do what matters, then you're free to do whatever you want with the rest. No guilt, no second guessing, no nagging feeling that you're falling behind. The structure handles the important stuff automatically, and everything else becomes optional. That's not a prison, that's liberation. The default day that changes everything. So how do you actually build this? You start with something simple, the default day. This is the template you repeat most of the time. Not every day, life isn't that predictable, but most days. Enough that it becomes your normal, your baseline, your automatic setting. Your default day has 2 or 3 fixed blocks of time dedicated to your most important goals. Not vague intentions like work on my project, specific actions at specific times. Maybe it's deep work from 8 to 10 every morning. Maybe it's skill practice right after you get home. Maybe it's planning and review every Sunday at 6. The exact blocks don't matter. What matters is that they're fixed, they're specific, and they repeat. These blocks become your non-negotiables. They're the actions that, if done daily, would move your life forward even if nothing else happened. And here's the key. They need to be small enough that you can complete them even on tough days. If your non-negotiable is work out for 2 hours, you'll skip it the first time you're tired. But if it's move for 20 minutes, you can do that even when you're wrecked. The goal isn't intensity. The goal is consistency. You're building a habit loop, and habit loops need repetition, not heroics. Once you've defined your blocks, you anchor them to something that already happens every day. This is called time anchoring, and it's how you make new actions automatic. You tie the new behavior to an existing cue. Right after you wake up, you do X. Right before bed, you do Y. After your first meeting, you do Z. The anchor becomes the trigger, and over time, the action starts to feel as automatic as the anchor itself. The lies you tell yourself about discipline. Let's kill a few myths before they kill your progress. The first one, I'll get disciplined when life calms down. This is the biggest lie you tell yourself, and you've been telling it for years. Life doesn't calm down. It gets busier, more complex, more chaotic. Waiting for calm is waiting forever. Discipline isn't built after the chaos. It's built in the chaos. It's the thing that keeps you steady when everything around you is spinning. The second myth: I need the perfect system before I start. You've spent hours researching the best productivity method, the ideal morning routine, the optimal schedule. And while you've been researching, people with worse systems have been executing. They're not smarter than you. They're just moving. A simple, imperfect schedule that you actually follow beats a complex, perfect one that stays in your notes app. Start simple, refine later, but start. The third myth: I'm just not a disciplined person. This one is insidious because it feels like self-awareness, but it's really just an excuse. Discipline isn't a personality trait you're born with or without. It's a skill you build through repetition. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you're practicing discipline. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you're strengthening the muscle. You're not disciplined. You're just untrained. And training starts with 1 rep. How to actually build the habit. Here's the practical part. Pick 2 or 3 actions that matter most to your goals right now. Not 10, not a complete life overhaul. 2 or 3. Make them specific and small. Work on the project is too vague. Write for 30 minutes is specific. Get in shape is too big. Move for 20 minutes is doable. Now assign each action to a specific time block. Not sometime in the morning. Not when I have energy. A specific time. 8 a.m., 6 p.m., right after you wake up. The specificity is what makes it stick. Vague plans collapse under pressure. Specific plans hold. Commit to never missing twice. This is your reset rule. You'll miss days. Life happens. You get sick, you travel, you have emergencies. That's fine. Missing once is normal. Missing twice is the start of a pattern. So when you miss, you don't spiral. You don't quit. You just make sure the next day is a win. That's how you protect the habit without demanding perfection. Track your progress visually. Use a calendar, a notebook, a simple chart. Put a checkmark every day you follow through. Let the streak build. The visual feedback is powerful. It turns abstract commitment into concrete proof. And when you see a string of checkmarks, breaking the streak starts to feel like a loss. That's good. Use that feeling to keep you moving. Finally, design your environment to support the routine. Clear distractions during your work blocks. Silence your phone. Close unnecessary tabs. Set up your workspace the night before so you can start immediately. Make the disciplined choice the easy choice, because willpower is limited, but a well-designed environment isn't. What winning looks like. When you get this right, you'll notice changes fast. At first, you'll just become more reliable to yourself. You'll hit your main commitments most days of the week. You'll feel less guilt about wasting time because more of your time is used well. You'll start to trust your calendar and your word again. That's the good outcome. Keep going, and your days develop structure and predictable progress. Your default day runs mostly on autopilot. You stop having those "where did the day go" moments because you know exactly where it went, into the blocks you planned. Your output increases without feeling constantly frantic. You're doing more, but it feels easier because the system is carrying the load. That's the excellent outcome. The best outcome? Discipline becomes who you are, not what you force. People start to know you as the one who always shows up and follows through. You can ramp effort up or down without losing your core routines, and you feel a quiet pride in the structure you've built and maintained. Not loud, not showy, just solid. That's when you know the engine is running. The traps to avoid. You'll be tempted to overload your schedule. You'll want to cram every minute with tasks, thinking more structure means more results. It doesn't. It means burnout. Your discipline will collapse under unrealistic expectations, and you'll quit entirely. The fix: cut back to essentials. Prioritize consistency over intensity. 2 non-negotiables done daily will beat 10 ambitious goals attempted once. You'll also be tempted to spiral after one miss. You'll break the routine, interpret it as total failure, and abandon the plan instead of restarting. This is where most people lose. The fix is simple: never miss twice. 1 miss is data, 2 is a pattern. Protect the pattern. And watch for resentment. If you start seeing your schedule as something done to you instead of for you, you'll sabotage it. Discipline only works when it's tied to meaning. Connect each routine to a clear reason. Remind yourself why it matters. Let the why fuel the what. The next chapter will show you how to shut down the internal arguments that try to talk you out of your own plan. Because even the best structure collapses if you keep renegotiating with yourself every time it gets hard. And that negotiation, it's the silent killer you haven't dealt with yet. Chapter 4, No Negotiation. There's a courtroom inside your head, and it's in session every single day. The prosecution presents the case for doing the work. The defense argues for comfort, and you, sitting there as both judge and jury, listen to both sides, weigh the evidence, and make a ruling. Sounds fair, right? Sounds reasonable. Sounds like you're being thoughtful and balanced. Except the defense always wins. Always. Because the defense isn't arguing with facts. It's arguing with feelings. And feelings are loud, persuasive, and optimized to keep you exactly where you are. This chapter is about shutting down that courtroom. Not because debate is bad, but because some things shouldn't be up for debate. When every action becomes a negotiation, you're not being flexible. You're giving comfort veto power. And comfort will veto everything that matters. The invisible drain you don't notice. You don't realize how much energy you're burning in these internal arguments. It feels like thinking. It feels like being responsible, weighing your options, making smart choices. But watch what actually happens when you start to negotiate with yourself. It's time to work. You know it. You planned it. But instead of starting, you pause. You check how you feel. You scan your energy levels. You wonder if maybe you should rest a bit more, or if this task is really the priority, or if you'd do better work later when you're fresher. The debate begins, and the longer it runs, the less likely you are to act. This isn't a one-time thing. It's happening multiple times a day, every day. Each negotiation drains a little energy. Each internal argument uses up a little willpower. And by the end of the day, you're exhausted, not from doing the work, but from debating whether to do it. You've spent more energy avoiding the task than the task itself would have required. Here's what you need to understand. Negotiation is where momentum dies. The moment you open the floor to debate, you've already lost half the battle. Because the part of you that wants comfort is a better lawyer than the part of you that wants growth. It knows exactly what to say. Just this once. You've had a hard day. You'll double up tomorrow. This isn't the right time. And every single argument sounds reasonable in the moment. But reasonable isn't the same as right. Reasonable is often just another word for easy, and if you keep choosing easy, you'll stay exactly where you are. The code you're missing. The most reliable people you know don't argue with themselves about the basics. They don't wake up and debate whether to show up. They don't stand at the threshold of important work and wonder if today's the day. They just move. Not because they're more motivated or tougher than you, because they've removed the choice. They operate by a code, a set of personal laws that define who they are and what they do, regardless of mood. These aren't vague aspirations. They're clear, specific rules that turn decisions into yes-no questions. I start work at 8 a.m., not I start work when I feel ready, not I start work around 8 if things are going well, just 8 a.m. The code says so. End of discussion. This is what you're missing. You have intentions. You have goals. You have things you want to do, but you don't have laws. And without laws, everything becomes negotiable. Every commitment is subject to review based on how you feel in the moment. And feelings, as you've already learned, are terrible decision makers. Your code is your identity on paper. It's the rule book for the person you're becoming. And when emotions get loud, when circumstances get messy, when motivation vanishes, the code is what keeps you on track. You don't ask, how do I feel about this? You ask, what does my code say? And then you follow it. Why flexibility is overrated. You've been told that flexibility is important, that rigid rules are oppressive, that you need to listen to your body and honor your needs and be kind to yourself. And there's truth in that, when applied correctly. But most people use flexibility as permission to quit. Too much flexibility becomes indistinguishable from having no standards at all. If every rule has an escape clause, then the rule doesn't exist. If you can always adjust based on how you feel, then you're back to letting feelings run the show, and you already know where that leads. Structure and flexibility can coexist, but structure must lead. You set the rule first, you follow it consistently, and only after you've proven you can keep it do you introduce flexibility. Winners bend but don't break their code. They might adjust the details, shift a time block, modify the intensity, but they don't abandon the commitment. The core stays solid. The myth you've been believing is that negotiation is you being reasonable with yourself. It's not. It's you being scared or lazy and dressing it up as wisdom. Real reasonableness would be honoring the commitment you made when your head was clear, not renegotiating it when discomfort shows up. Another myth: if I'm too strict, I'll rebel. This fear keeps you from setting real standards. You're worried that if you make the rules too firm, you'll eventually snap and throw the whole thing out. But rebellion doesn't come from strictness. It comes from meaninglessness. When rules feel arbitrary or extreme, you resist them. When rules are simple, meaningful, and tied to who you want to be, they feel empowering. You don't rebel against a code you respect. You lean into it. Building your personal laws. So how do you actually build this code? You start with 3 personal laws, not 10, not a complete manifesto. 3 simple, clear, non-negotiable rules that represent who you want to be. The first law is time-based. This is your anchor. It's the rule that says, I do X at Y time, no debate. Maybe it's I start deep work at 8 a.m. every weekday. Maybe it's I review my day at 8 p.m. every night. The exact rule doesn't matter. What matters is that it's specific, it's tied to a time, and it's non-negotiable. This law removes the decision from the moment. When the time comes, you don't ask if you feel like it, you just start. The second law is behavior-based. This is your reset rule. It's the standard that protects you from spiraling. A good one: I never break a promise to myself twice in a row. This law acknowledges that you're human. You'll miss days, you'll slip, but you won't let one slip become a pattern. You miss once, you're back the next day. No exceptions. This law keeps small failures from becoming identity shifts. The third law is character-based. This is your integrity rule. It defines how you operate when things get hard. Maybe it's I finish what I start unless continuing is truly harmful. Maybe it's I don't cancel on myself. Maybe it's I choose the hard option when both are available. This law is about who you are, not just what you do. It's the standard you hold when no one's watching and nothing's forcing you. Write these 3 laws down, not in your head, on paper, in simple language you can't misinterpret, and put them somewhere you'll see them daily. These aren't suggestions. They're the operating system for your new life. The if-then lock. Once you have your laws, you need a mechanism to enforce them. That's where the if-then lock comes in. This is a simple formula that removes wiggle room and makes action automatic. The structure is this: if X happens, then I do Y. No second clause, no unless I'm tired or if I feel like it. Just if this, then that. The trigger happens, the action follows, like a machine. For example, if it's 8 a.m., then I start deep work. If I finish my last meeting, then I review my task list. If I miss a workout, then I do a minimum version the next day. The if-then lock turns your code into automatic behavior. You're not deciding in the moment, you're executing a pre-decided rule. The key is to remove all the escape hatches when you write the rule. Your brain will try to add them later. Well, unless I didn't sleep well. Except if I have a lot on my mind. But only if conditions are good. Don't let it. The rule is the rule. If you need to adjust it, you do that during a planned review, weekly, monthly, whenever you set aside time to evaluate your systems. But you never adjust it in the moment of discomfort. Because in that moment, you're not thinking clearly. You're just looking for an exit. Act before you argue. Here's a tactical move that will save you more energy than anything else in this chapter. When you catch negotiations starting, move first. Don't try to out-argue your brain. Don't build a counter case for why you should do the work. Just act. One small action before one thought. Your brain needs time to build a case against you. It needs a few seconds to gather evidence, construct the argument, and present it in a way that sounds logical. If you move immediately, you interrupt that process. You don't give the defense time to speak. And once you're moving, the negotiation loses power. It's hard to argue for quitting when you're already in motion. This is why speed matters. Give yourself 5 seconds between the cue and the action. Not 5 minutes, 5 seconds. When the alarm goes off, you move. When the time block starts, you begin. No pause to check your mood. No sitting in the should-I stage. Just cue, action done. Let speed protect you from second-guessing. You can also build a no-excuse script. This is a short phrase you repeat to yourself when you sense bargaining starting. Something like, "We don't negotiate, we move," or "The code says yes," or simply, "Now." The script doesn't have to be clever, it just has to be fast and final. Use it to anchor yourself back to action before the debate gains traction. What happens when you stop negotiating? When you get this right, the changes are immediate. At first, you'll just notice you're making faster decisions. You waste less time bargaining with yourself. You feel less mental fatigue during the day because you're not burning energy on internal arguments. That's the good outcome. Keep going, and your code starts to run your life. You default to your personal laws when things get hard. You follow through on commitments without needing constant pep talks. People start to notice you as someone who just does what they said. You become reliable, not just to others, but to yourself. That's the excellent outcome. The best outcome? You become truly non-negotiable about your standards. You don't argue with yourself about whether to show up. You just do. Your internal respect skyrockets because you keep your own word, and you operate by a clear code that makes big decisions easier and small ones automatic. You've removed the courtroom, and without it, there's nothing left to do but execute. The traps that kill your code. You'll be tempted to set unrealistic laws. You'll write rules that require perfection or extreme effort because you're excited and motivated right now. Then you'll fail quickly and start ignoring your own code. The fix: start simple. Make your laws achievable. Upgrade only after you've proven consistency. You'll also be tempted to turn the code into self-punishment. You'll use broken rules as reasons to attack yourself. You'll create shame instead of motivation. Don't. Treat broken laws as data. Adjust if needed. Recommit. But don't self-destruct. The code is there to build you up, not tear you down. And watch for the sneaky trap: editing laws in the moment. You'll want to adjust the rule when you don't feel like following it. Maybe I should change this to be more flexible. Maybe this rule doesn't make sense anymore. If you do that, your brain learns that your laws are optional. Only edit during planned review times. Never in the moment of discomfort. The next chapter will show you how to break the inertia that stops you before you even begin. Because even with a solid code, there's still one moment where most people fail: the start. And if you can't start, nothing else matters. Chapter 5. Start anyway. You know what you need to do. The task is sitting there, waiting. You've planned it, scheduled it, maybe even hyped yourself up for it. But when the moment arrives, something happens. You freeze. Not dramatically, not with panic or terror, just a quiet, heavy resistance that makes moving feel impossible. So you wait. You tell yourself you'll start in 5 minutes, then 10, then after you check one more thing. And before you know it, the day is gone and the task is still untouched. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, but because you never figured out how to break through that first moment of resistance. This chapter is about that moment. The moment where most dreams go to die. Not in the middle of the work, not at the finish line, right at the start. And if you can master this moment, if you can learn to launch even when your brain is screaming, "Not now," you'll have solved the biggest problem standing between you and everything you want. Where everything actually falls apart. Here's what you probably haven't noticed. Most of your failures don't happen mid-task. They happen before you begin. You don't quit halfway through the workout. You quit before you put on your shoes. You don't abandon the project after an hour of work. You abandon it by never opening the file. You don't fail at the hard conversation. You fail by never picking up the phone. Starting is the bottleneck. It's the choke point where emotion has maximum power and logic has minimum influence. Because once you're moving, resistance drops. Once you're in the middle of the task, momentum carries you. But at the start, you're fighting pure inertia. And inertia is ruthless. The longer you wait, the heavier the task feels. Hesitation doesn't make things easier. It multiplies fear and shrinks courage. Every minute you spend not starting is a minute you spend training yourself to quit. You're teaching your brain that when resistance shows up, the answer is delay. And delay becomes your default response to everything hard. This is why people who know what to do still don't do it. It's not a knowledge problem, it's a starting problem. And until you solve it, nothing else matters. You can have the perfect plan, the best system, the clearest goals, but if you can't break inertia and take the first step, all of it stays theoretical. The confidence trap you're stuck in. You're waiting for confidence to show up. You think once you feel ready, once you feel capable, once you feel certain, then you'll start. But that's backward. Confidence doesn't arrive before action. It arrives after. Confidence is evidence-based. You believe in yourself because you've done the thing before. You trust yourself because you have proof. But you're trying to get the proof without doing the work. You're expecting to feel confident before you've earned it. And so you wait. And while you wait, your future self is watching. And every time you delay, every time you choose comfort over commitment, you're sending a message. I don't trust you to follow through. Your future self only trusts reps, not intentions. And right now, you're giving it 0 reps to work with. The shift happens when you stop expecting confidence to arrive first. You act while unready. You move while uncertain. You start while scared. And then, only then, does confidence begin to build. Not because you felt ready, but because you proved you could do it anyway. The first rep changes everything. Think of every task like a workout. The hardest part isn't the 10th rep, it's the first. The first rep is where all the resistance lives. It's where your brain throws every excuse, every doubt, every reason to stop. But once you get past that first rep, something shifts. The second rep is easier. The third is automatic. Momentum takes over. This is the first rep principle. Treat the start as the whole fight. Don't worry about finishing. Don't worry about doing it perfectly. Just win the first rep. Open the document, dial the number, put on your shoes. That's it. One action, one move. And that one move is enough to change your state. Your brain overestimates the pain of starting and underestimates the relief of progress. It thinks the whole task will feel as hard as this first moment, but it won't. Once you're moving, resistance drops, the emotional weight lifts, and what felt impossible 30 seconds ago suddenly feels manageable. This is why micro-actions work. You're not trying to do the whole task, you're just trying to break inertia. You shrink the next step until it has no emotional weight, until your brain can't build a case against it, until the resistance is so small that moving becomes easier than staying stuck. Turn write the report into open the document. Turn make the call into dial the number. Turn workout into put on shoes. Keep shrinking until your brain says, fine, whatever. Because once you've taken that tiny first step, the second step becomes obvious, and the third. And suddenly, you're not starting anymore. You're already in motion. The myths keeping you frozen. Let's kill the myths that keep you stuck at the starting line. The first one, if I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't start. This is perfectionism dressed up as standards. It sounds like you care about quality, but really it's just fear. Fear of looking bad, fear of failing, fear of being judged. So you wait for the perfect conditions, the perfect plan, the perfect mood, and while you wait, people with worse plans are finishing. Perfectionism isn't about excellence, it's about avoidance. And the fix is simple. Replace perfect starts with honest starts. Give yourself permission to be clumsy at the beginning. A rough draft beats a perfect idea that never gets written. A messy first attempt beats a flawless plan that stays in your head. Start ugly. Start now. Refine later. The second myth. Small steps don't matter. You think if the action isn't big and impressive, it doesn't count. But small steps are how momentum is born. Every giant result is stacked from tiny reps. The person who writes one sentence a day finishes the book. The person who does 5 push-ups daily builds the habit that leads to 100. Small steps aren't weak, they're strategic. They're how you bypass resistance and build proof. The third myth, I need to feel ready. You've been waiting for readiness like it's a prerequisite. But ready is a feeling created by motion, not a condition that arrives before it. You don't feel ready, then act. You act, then feel ready. Readiness is a byproduct of starting, not a requirement for it. So stop waiting. Move while unready. That's your edge. The 2-minute ignition system. Here's a practical tool that will change how you approach every hard task. The 2-minute launch. When you're resisting something, commit to doing it for just 2 minutes. Not the whole thing. Not until it's done. Just 2 minutes. Then you can stop if you want. Pick the task you're resisting right now. Set a timer for 2 minutes. Start immediately. No prep ritual beyond what's absolutely necessary. And here's the key. At 2 minutes, you may stop, but you must choose consciously. You can't just drift away. You have to actively decide, keep going or stop. What happens most of the time? You keep going, because starting was the hard part. Once you're moving, stopping feels harder than continuing. The 2-minute commitment gets you past the inertia, and once you're past it, momentum takes over. This isn't a trick to manipulate yourself into working longer. It's a way to lower the entry cost so you can actually start. Minimum viable effort isn't about staying small forever. It's about getting moving. Once you're moving, you can scale, but you can't scale what you never start. Another tactic, shrink the next step until it's unstoppable. If write the report feels too heavy, shrink it. Open the document. Still too much? Find the file. Still resisting? Turn on the computer. Keep shrinking until your brain runs out of excuses, until the step is so small that doing it takes less energy than avoiding it. And use speed as a weapon. Give yourself 5 seconds between the decision and the action, not 5 minutes. 5 seconds. When the timer goes off, you move. When the cue appears, you start. Don't give your emotions time to build a case against you. Let speed protect you from second guessing. The start trigger that makes it automatic. Build one tiny ritual that means we begin. This is your start trigger. It's a consistent cue that tells your brain action is happening now. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Timer on, phone away, first rep. Or close all tabs, open the document, write one sentence. Or stand up, take a breath, move. The ritual itself doesn't matter. What matters is consistency. Use the same trigger every time. Let your brain associate it with action. Over time, the trigger becomes automatic. You don't have to force yourself to start. The ritual starts you. And here's a critical point. Don't think your way into action. When resistance hits, move your body first. Thinking is what got you stuck. More thinking won't unstick you. Action will. Let the movement reduce the emotion, not the other way around. Use thinking only after momentum is rolling. Start ugly. Start messy. Start without knowing how it will turn out. Keep the bar low for starting and high for returning tomorrow. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is proof. Proof that you can start even when you don't feel like it. Proof that resistance doesn't control you. Proof that you're the kind of person who moves. What happens when you master the start? When you get this right, you'll notice changes immediately. At first, you'll just start on time more often. You'll reduce procrastination windows. You'll begin tasks even when you're annoyed or tired. You'll see more done days than almost days. That's the good outcome. Keep practicing, and starting becomes your default response. You stop waiting for feelings to settle. You launch with micro actions automatically. Your productivity rises without extra stress because you're not burning energy on delay. That's the excellent outcome. The best outcome? Momentum carries you past emotion. You trigger flow states more often because you're actually getting into the work instead of circling it. You finish more projects because they actually get started. And you trust yourself to begin even in chaos. That trust is worth more than any productivity hack you'll ever find. The traps that kill your momentum. Watch for this, using 2-minute starts as an excuse to stay small. You commit to 2 minutes, do 2 minutes, then stop every single time. You're using minimum viable effort to avoid real work. The fix, MVP, is only for ignition. Once you're moving, expand deliberately. Let the small start lead to bigger action. Another trap, over-prepping instead of starting. You clean your workspace, organize your files, research the best method, and get ready forever. You confuse preparation with progress. The fix, cap prep time. Start before the environment is perfect. Messy action beats perfect planning. And don't let one bad start define the day. You stumble early, the first attempt feels rough, and you quit mentally. You interpret friction as failure, but friction is normal. The fix, restart with an even smaller rep. Momentum is the goal, not perfection. The next chapter will show you how to turn discomfort from an enemy into fuel. Because even when you master starting, the work will still feel hard. And if you keep running from hard, you'll never expand beyond where you are now. But there's a way to make hard feel different, and that shift changes everything. Chapter 6, Embrace Discomfort. You've been running from the wrong thing. Every time something feels hard, you interpret it as a warning. Your brain sends the signal, tension, resistance, that heavy feeling in your chest, and you listen. You back off. You choose the easier path. You tell yourself you're being smart, strategic, balanced. But what you're really doing is training yourself to stay small. Comfort feels safe. It feels like self-care. It feels like you're protecting yourself from unnecessary stress. And in the moment, it works. You avoid the discomfort and the relief is immediate. But that relief comes with a hidden cost. Every time you choose comfort, you're choosing to stay exactly where you are. You're trading growth for ease. And over time, that trade bankrupts your future. This chapter is about flipping that relationship. Not by becoming a masochist who seeks pain for its own sake, but by learning to see discomfort for what it actually is. The price of admission to everything you want. Because the truth is simple and brutal. If you keep avoiding hard things, you'll never become the person capable of handling them. The addiction you don't see. Comfort is addictive. Not in the dramatic, obvious way, in the quiet, insidious way that makes it nearly impossible to detect. You don't wake up one day and realize you're addicted to comfort. You just notice that your life has gotten smaller, your goals have shrunk, your ambitions have become realistic, and you can't quite remember when you stopped reaching for the things that used to excite you. Here's how it works. Every time you choose the comfortable option, your brain rewards you. It releases a little hit of relief, and that relief feels good. So you do it again and again. And over time, your brain learns a simple equation. Discomfort equals bad, comfort equals good. Avoid the first, seek the second. It becomes automatic. The problem is that comfort and growth are inversely related. The more comfort you seek, the less you grow. The more you avoid discomfort, the smaller your capacity becomes. And capacity, your ability to handle stress, uncertainty, challenge, is what determines the size of your life. Shrink your capacity, and you shrink everything else with it. You can see this in your daily choices. The soft decisions you make without thinking. Hitting snooze instead of getting up. Scrolling instead of working. Avoiding the hard conversation. Skipping the difficult task. Choosing the path of least resistance every single time. Each choice feels harmless in isolation, but they compound. And what you end up with is a life built entirely around avoiding discomfort, which means it's a life built around staying the same. What discomfort actually means. You've been interpreting discomfort wrong. You think it's a warning sign, a signal that something's off, that you're pushing too hard, that you need to back off. And sometimes that's true. But most of the time, discomfort just means you're expanding. It means you're doing something your current self isn't used to. And that's exactly where growth happens. Think about every meaningful upgrade you've ever made. Learning a new skill, building a relationship, pushing past a physical limit, taking a risk. Every single one of them was uncomfortable at first, awkward, uncertain, hard. But you didn't interpret that discomfort as a stop sign. You pushed through it. And on the other side, you were different, stronger, more capable. The discomfort wasn't the problem, it was the process. The issue is that you've started treating all discomfort like danger. Your brain can't tell the difference between productive struggle and actual threat. So when you feel resistance, it screams stop with the same urgency it would use if you were about to step off a cliff. And you listen, because it feels real. But it's not real. It's just your nervous system doing what it's designed to do, keep you safe and comfortable. The shift happens when you stop asking, does this feel hard, and start asking, is this making me better? Because hard isn't the problem. Pointless hard is the problem. Suffering for no reason is the problem. But discomfort tied to growth, that's the toll you pay to cross into the next version of yourself. And if you're not willing to pay it, you don't get to cross. The myths that keep you soft. Let's kill the myths that keep you stuck in the comfort zone. The first one, if it hurts, I'm doing it wrong. This sounds like wisdom. It sounds like you're listening to your body, honoring your limits, being kind to yourself. But it's a trap, because early discomfort is a normal sign of expansion. When you're learning something new, it feels clumsy. When you're building strength, it feels hard. When you're stretching your capacity, it feels uncomfortable. That's not misalignment. That's progress. You've been using this myth to escape hard tasks. You start something challenging, it feels difficult, and you tell yourself it's not aligned or not the right fit. But the truth is simpler. It's just new. And new always feels hard at first. Stop mistaking challenge for misalignment. Use logic to evaluate risk, not mood. If the task moves you toward your goals and isn't actually dangerous, the discomfort is just part of the process. The second myth, I'll push when I feel stronger. This one keeps you waiting forever, because strength isn't something that arrives before you push. Strength is the result of pushing. You don't get strong, then lift heavy. You lift heavy, then get strong. You don't become resilient, then face challenges. You face challenges, then become resilient. Waiting to feel stronger is just another way of avoiding the work that builds strength. The third myth, comfort is self-care. This is the sneakiest one because it hides behind good intentions. You tell yourself you're resting, recovering, taking care of yourself. And sometimes that's true, but most of the time you're just avoiding. Real recovery supports your standards. It restores you so you can return stronger. Avoidance, disguised as self-care, just keeps you stuck. Learn to tell the difference by asking one question. Does this move me forward or keep me safe? If it's always the latter, you're not recovering. You're hiding. How to rewire your relationship with hard. Here's the practical part. When something feels hard, pause for 5 seconds and label it. This is discomfort. Don't argue with it. Don't try to make it go away. Just name it. Then translate it. Discomfort means growth is happening. This simple reframe changes everything. You're not running from a threat. You're leaning into expansion. And once you've reframed it, take the next rep immediately. Don't give your brain time to build a case for quitting. Next, schedule one hard thing daily, not randomly, not when you feel like it, at a fixed time. Pick a task you usually avoid because it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's the call you've been delaying, the project that feels too big, the conversation that makes you anxious. Put it on your calendar, and when the time comes, do it. Treat completion as a win regardless of how it felt, because the goal isn't to make it feel easy. The goal is to prove you can do hard things even when they feel hard. Use gradual exposure to build tolerance. You don't jump into the deep end on day one. You start with discomfort you can survive today, then increase difficulty slowly as your tolerance grows. This is how you train your nervous system to stay calm under pressure. You expose yourself to manageable challenge, survive it, then raise the bar. Over time, what used to feel impossible starts to feel normal, and what felt normal starts to feel easy. The mental shifts that make hard feel different. Stop romanticizing comfort. Look at the people you admire, the ones who've built something meaningful, the ones who've achieved what you want to achieve. None of them got there by choosing comfort. They got there by choosing hard, over and over, until hard became their baseline. Use this as a filter for daily choices. When you're deciding between two options, ask, which one would the person I want to become choose? Then choose that one. Use hard equals right direction as a compass. When a task feels difficult, treat it like a signal that you're moving forward. Not always. Some hard things are just pointless. But most of the time, the hard option is the growth option. Keep your story simple. Hard is part of it. Don't add drama. Don't make it mean something's wrong. Just acknowledge it and move. Make discomfort a game. Track hard reps like points. Every time you choose the uncomfortable option, that's a point. Every time you do the thing you've been avoiding, that's a point. Compete against yesterday. Did you do more hard things today than you did yesterday? Then you're winning. Celebrate the choice to do hard things, not just the results. Because the choice is what builds the identity. The results are just a byproduct. What winning looks like. When you start doing this, you'll notice changes fast. At first, you'll just stop quitting when it gets hard. You'll tolerate friction without spiraling. You'll finish more tasks you used to abandon. And you'll feel pride in endurance, not just in outcomes, but in the fact that you stuck with it when it sucked. That's the good outcome. Keep going, and you'll start choosing discomfort strategically. You'll schedule hard tasks instead of dodging them. You'll recover properly and return stronger. Your capacity will grow month over month. You'll notice you can handle more stress, more uncertainty, more challenge than you could before. That's the excellent outcome. The best outcome? Discomfort becomes familiar, even welcome. You start seeking growth automatically because hard reps feel normal now. Fear loses its grip because you've done hard things so many times that they're no longer scary. They're just part of your routine. You become anti-fragile. Pressure doesn't break you, it makes you better. And that's when you know you've flipped the script. The traps that sabotage progress. Watch for this. Glamorizing suffering. You start pushing hard without reason or recovery. You confuse misery with progress. You think more pain equals more growth, so you grind yourself into the ground. That's not strength. That's stupidity. The fix: choose purposeful discomfort tied to your goals. Pace it. Rest when you need to. The goal is sustainable challenge, not reckless suffering. Another trap: avoiding discomfort by getting ready. You delay hard tasks with endless planning. You research, organize, strategize, and call it preparation. But really, it's just avoidance with a better outfit. The fix: start with exposure. Refine later. You don't need to be perfectly prepared. You just need to begin. And don't mistake panic for growth. You jump too far too fast. You overwhelm your system and retreat. Then you tell yourself you're not ready or not built for this. But the problem wasn't the challenge, it was the pacing. The fix: scale discomfort in steps. Stay challenging but survivable. Push just beyond your current edge, not 10 miles past it. The next chapter will show you how to execute even when everything inside you is screaming to stop. Because mastering discomfort is one thing, but holding your standards on the days when you're tired, anxious, or completely off your game, that's where most people break. And it's where you're about to learn how to hold steady. Chapter 7: Win the Day. Anyone can show up on a good day. When you're rested, focused, and feeling sharp, execution is easy. The work flows, the resistance is low, you knock out tasks and feel like a champion. But that's not where your future is decided. Your future is decided on the days when everything feels wrong, when you're tired, when you're anxious, when you're bored out of your mind and every cell in your body is screaming for an exit. Those days, the ugly ones, the hard ones, the ones where you'd rather do anything but the work, those are the days that separate people who talk about goals from people who actually reach them. And right now, you're losing those days. Not because you're weak, but because you're playing by the wrong rules. You think the rule is perform well or don't perform at all. You think if you can't bring your A game, you should wait until you can. But that rule is killing you. Because most days aren't A game days. Most days are messy, chaotic, and far from ideal. And if you only act when conditions are perfect, you'll barely act at all. This chapter is about winning the day, even when the day feels like it's already lost. It's about keeping your commitments alive when your energy is trash and your mood is loud. It's about building a version of yourself that doesn't need perfect conditions to execute, because perfect conditions are rare. And resilience? Resilience is built in the mess. The test you keep failing. Here's what you haven't fully grasped yet. Bad days are the real test. Good days don't prove anything. When you're feeling strong, motivated, and clear-headed, of course you can act. That's not discipline. That's just riding a wave. The real question is, can you act when the wave is gone? Can you show up when you're running on fumes? Can you follow through when every part of you wants to quit? Right now, the answer is no, and you know it. You've had plenty of days where you started strong, hit a rough patch, and bailed. You told yourself you'd make up for it tomorrow, but tomorrow came and you were in the same state. So you bailed again, and what started as one bad day became a bad week, then a bad month, and now you're stuck in a pattern where your progress only happens when you feel good, which means your progress barely happens at all. The shift you need to make is simple but brutal. Stop treating bad days as exceptions. They're not. They're the norm. Life is chaotic, energy fluctuates, moods swing, stress shows up uninvited, and if you can't perform under those conditions, you can't perform consistently. Period. Resilience isn't a personality trait you're born with or without. It's a skill you build through repeated exposure to acting under bad conditions. Every time you show up tired and do the work anyway, you're training resilience. Every time you feel anxious and move forward anyway, you're building capacity. And every time you execute on a day when you don't feel like it, you're proving to yourself that feelings don't run the show. You do. When everything inside you says stop. Let's talk about the 3 states that kill most people's momentum: fatigue, fear, and boredom. These are the conditions where execution feels impossible. And if you don't have a strategy for each one, you'll keep losing days to them. Fatigue is the easiest to justify. You're tired, your body feels heavy, your mind feels slow, and the voice in your head says, you need rest, you've earned it, take the day off. And sometimes that's true, but most of the time it's not. Most of the time, tiredness is just a state, not a verdict. It's your brain trying to conserve energy by convincing you to stop. And if you obey it every time, you'll never build endurance. The fix is minimum standards. On tired days, you don't aim for your best performance. You aim for the smallest version of your key actions that keeps the habit alive. Maybe your normal workout is an hour. On a tired day, it's 10 minutes. Maybe your normal work session is 2 hours. On a tired day, it's 20 minutes. The goal isn't intensity. The goal is momentum. Because once you start, the tiredness often fades. And even if it doesn't, you've still won the day. You showed up tired and did it anyway. That's a rep that counts. Fear and anxiety are harder because they feel urgent. Your brain treats them like danger signals. So when you feel anxious about making the call, sending the message, or starting the project, your instinct is to wait until the fear subsides. But it won't. Fear doesn't go away because you avoid it. It grows. The only way to shrink fear is exposure. You do the thing while scared. You take the next small action despite the anxiety. And over time, your nervous system learns that the thing you're afraid of isn't actually dangerous. The fear loses power, but only if you move through it, not around it. Boredom is the sneakiest killer because it doesn't feel like a problem. It just feels like the work isn't interesting anymore. The novelty is gone, the excitement has faded, and you start thinking, maybe this isn't the right thing for me. But boredom is part of mastery. Every skill, every goal, every meaningful pursuit has a boring middle. The people who win are the ones who keep moving through the dull reps. Because dull reps compound. They're not exciting, but they're effective. And if you quit every time you're bored, you'll never stick with anything long enough to see results. The lies you tell yourself about rest. You've been confusing rest with avoidance. You think taking a day off is self-care, and sometimes it is, but most of the time, it's just an excuse to escape discomfort. Real rest supports your standards. It restores you so you can return stronger. Avoidance disguised as rest just keeps you stuck. Here's how to tell the difference. Ask yourself, does this move me forward or keep me safe? If you're skipping the work because you're genuinely depleted and need recovery, that's rest. If you're skipping because it feels hard and you don't want to deal with it, that's avoidance. And avoidance creates more stress later because the task doesn't go away. It just sits there, growing heavier in your mind, draining energy even when you're not doing it. Another myth you're believing: if I'm not at 100%, it doesn't count. This is all or nothing thinking, and it's destroying your consistency. You think if you can't give maximum effort, you shouldn't bother. But that's backward. 60% done beats 0% perfect. Showing up at half speed beats not showing up at all. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is proof. Proof that you can act even when conditions aren't ideal. Proof that you keep your word to yourself, regardless of how you feel. And stop telling yourself, I'm just not built for consistency. That's not a fact. That's a story you're using to avoid accountability. Consistency isn't a personality trait, it's a behavior. And behavior is trained. You become consistent by acting consistently, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. Those are the days that build the identity. Those are the reps that matter most. The minimum standard that saves everything. Here's the tactical move that will change how you handle bad days. Define the smallest version of your key actions. This is your minimum standard. It's the version you can complete even on your worst day. And on bad days, that's all you're required to do. Let's say your normal standard is to work on your project for 2 hours. Your minimum standard might be 20 minutes, or even 10. The exact number doesn't matter. What matters is that it's small enough that you can't talk yourself out of it, but meaningful enough that it keeps the habit alive. On a bad day, you wake up feeling wrecked. Your energy is low, your mood is terrible, and the voice in your head says, skip it, you'll do better tomorrow. But instead of listening, you say, minimum standard, then done. You do the 10 minutes, and here's what happens. Sometimes, once you start, you keep going. The resistance drops, the momentum builds, and you end up doing more than the minimum. But even if you don't, even if you stop at 10 minutes, you still win. Because you showed up, you kept your word, and you didn't let a bad day become a stop day. This is how you prevent identity collapse. When you skip a day entirely, you're not just missing a task. You're sending a message to yourself. I'm the kind of person who quits when it gets hard. But when you hit the minimum standard, you're sending a different message. I'm the kind of person who shows up no matter what. And that message, repeated over time, becomes your identity. How to judge the day. Stop judging your days by how you felt. Start judging them by what you did. Your mood is irrelevant. Your energy level is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is, did you complete the actions you committed to? If yes, the day was a win. If no, it wasn't. It's that simple. Track completion, not mood. At the end of the day, look at your list. Did you hit your minimum standards? Check. Did you follow through on your non-negotiables? Check. That's the scoreboard. Ignore the emotional commentary. Ignore the voice that says, yeah, but it felt terrible. Feelings don't get a vote. Behavior does. And when you're overwhelmed, use the next controllable action rule. Shrink your focus to the next step you can actually control. Not the whole project, not the entire day, just the next move. Do it immediately, then repeat. This keeps you from spiraling into paralysis. Because paralysis happens when you're trying to solve everything at once. But you don't need to solve everything. You just need to take the next step. The script that blocks the bargaining. Prepare a bad day script. This is one line you'll say to yourself when you're low and your brain is trying to negotiate. Something like, minimum standard, then done. Or, 1 rep, that's all. Or simply, move now. The script doesn't have to be clever. It just has to be fast and final. When you feel resistance building, repeat the script. Don't engage with the bargaining. Don't debate whether you should do it. Just say the line and move. Let the script interrupt the negotiation before it gains traction. Over time, the script becomes automatic. You hear it, you act, no thinking required. And celebrate survival reps. Give yourself credit for acting under pressure. These are the reps that separate winners from average. Anyone can execute on a good day, but you executed on a day when everything inside you said stop. That's an identity upgrade. That's proof you're becoming someone different. Treat it like the win it is. What happens when you master bad days? When you get this right, you'll stop breaking streaks. You'll keep habits alive during rough patches. You'll bounce back faster after missed days. And you'll feel steadier week to week because you're not riding the emotional roller coaster anymore. That's the good outcome. Keep going, and you become condition-proof. You act even when energy is low. You stop letting fear delay important moves. People start seeing you as dependable in chaos. You're the one who shows up when everyone else is making excuses. That's the excellent outcome. The best outcome? Bad days become your edge. You win when others quit. Your resilience compounds into long-term dominance, and you trust yourself under any internal weather. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need ideal moods. You just need the next rep, and you always take it. The traps that kill your streak. Watch for this. Treating consistency like constant intensity. You push max effort every single day and crash. Then you skip days because you're burned out. The fix: minimum standards on low days, intensity on good days. Let your effort fluctuate, but never let your commitment break. Another trap: misreading fatigue as failure. You think tired equals weak, so you quit early because of that story. But fatigue is normal. It's part of the process. The rep still counts even if it felt hard. Stop letting tiredness rewrite your identity. And don't let one setback become a label. You miss a day and call yourself inconsistent. You spiral into shame. But one miss is just data. It's not who you are. The fix: reset fast with minimum standards and never miss twice. Get back on track immediately. Don't let the story grow. The next chapter will show you how to turn all of this, action despite feelings, discipline, discomfort, resilience, into something permanent. Because right now, you're still forcing it. But there's a way to make execution feel effortless. A way to become the kind of person who just does the work automatically without needing to convince yourself every single time. And that shift? That's where everything locks in. Chapter 8: Execution Identity. You've been forcing it. Every action, every rep, every commitment, you've been white-knuckling your way through, and it's exhausting. You wake up, psych yourself up, push through resistance, and by the end of the day, you're drained. Not from the work itself, but from the constant internal battle to make yourself do it. This can't last. Willpower is a finite resource, and if execution always requires maximum effort, you'll eventually run out. You'll hit a wall, burn out, and slide back into old patterns. Not because you're weak, but because you're trying to sustain something that's fundamentally unsustainable. But there's another way. A way where action stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like who you are. Where you don't have to convince yourself to show up, because showing up is just what you do. Where execution becomes automatic, effortless, inevitable, not because you've mastered motivation, but because you've built an identity that carries you. This chapter is about making that shift, from someone who tries to someone who does, from forcing action to embodying it, from relying on willpower to relying on proof, because once your identity is built on execution, feelings lose their power, and that's when everything changes. Hatch the account you've been draining. Think of self-trust like a bank account. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you make a deposit. Every time you break one, you make a withdrawal. And right now, your account is overdrawn. You've been making promises you don't keep. I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it this time. I'm serious now. And every time you don't follow through, you're teaching your brain a simple lesson. Your word doesn't mean anything. So, when you make the next promise, your brain doesn't believe you. It's seen this movie before. It knows how it ends. This is why confidence feels so elusive. You think confidence is about believing in your potential, but it's not. Confidence is about believing in your reliability. It's about trusting that when you say you'll do something, you'll actually do it. And right now, you don't have that trust because you haven't earned it. The good news? You can rebuild it. Not with grand gestures or perfect weeks, with small, consistent deposits. Every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you're adding to the account. And over time, those deposits compound. Your brain starts to believe you again. Your future self starts to trust you. And that trust becomes the foundation for everything else. But here's the catch. You can't rebuild trust with big promises. You have to start small. Tiny promises you can actually keep. Because one kept promise is worth more than 10 broken ones. It's proof, and proof is the only currency your brain accepts. Why habits fail without identity. You've tried to build habits before. You've set up systems, tracked streaks, used apps, and for a while it worked. But then life got messy, motivation faded, and the habit collapsed. And you blamed yourself. You thought you lacked discipline or consistency or whatever trait you decided you were missing. But the real problem wasn't the habit, it was the identity behind it. Because habits don't stick when they're just tasks you're doing. They stick when they're expressions of who you are. Think about it. You don't have to force yourself to brush your teeth. You don't debate whether to shower. You don't need motivation to put on clothes before leaving the house. Why? Because those actions are tied to your identity. You're a person who maintains basic hygiene. It's not a task, it's just who you are. The same principle applies to any habit you want to build. If you're trying to work out, the habit is fragile. But if you're someone who moves daily, the habit is solid. If you're trying to be productive, you'll quit when it gets hard. But if you're someone who executes, you'll keep going because that's what you do. The shift from doing to being is subtle but powerful. It moves the action from something external, a task on a list, to something internal, a reflection of your character. And when action is tied to identity, it requires less effort. You're not forcing yourself to act like someone you're not. You're just being who you are. The myths keeping you stuck in trying. Let's kill the myths that keep you in perpetual trial mode. The first one, I'll feel like a winner once I win. You're waiting for the big outcome, the promotion, the body, the finished project, to prove you're the kind of person who succeeds. But that's backward. Identity doesn't come from outcomes. It comes from reps. You don't win, then become a winner. You act like a winner, repeatedly, until the wins are inevitable. Stop waiting for external validation to change how you see yourself. Start acting like the person you want to become, right now, with zero proof that it'll work. Because the proof comes after the action, not before. The second myth. Identity is personality, not practice. You think identity is something you discover, like a hidden truth about yourself. But identity isn't found, it's built. Your current identity, whoever you are right now, is the result of repeated actions over time. You became this person through practice, and you can become a different person the same way. Choose a better practice. Repeat it. Let the new identity form. The third myth. One failure means I'm not that person. You miss a day, skip a rep, break a promise, and immediately rewrite your entire story. See? I'm not consistent. I'm not disciplined. I'm not that person. But that's not how identity works. Identity is an average, not a moment. One slip doesn't erase 100 reps. Stop letting a single failure override all the evidence you've built. Recommit fast. Protect the identity by getting back on track immediately. How to build an execution-based identity. Here's the practical part. Start an evidence log. Every day, write one sentence. I acted despite feeling awe. Fill in the blank with whatever emotion tried to stop you. I acted despite feeling tired. I acted despite feeling anxious. I acted despite feeling unmotivated. Keep it factual, not emotional. You're not journaling. You're collecting proof. Review the log weekly. Look at the pattern. See how many times you showed up when you didn't feel like it. That's your identity forming in ink. That's evidence your brain can't argue with. And over time, the log becomes a mirror. You look at it and see someone who executes, not someone who tries, someone who does. Next, change your language. Stop saying I'm trying to be consistent. Start saying I'm consistent. Stop saying I want to be disciplined. Start saying I'm disciplined. The shift sounds small, but it rewires how you see yourself. Language shapes identity, and identity shapes behavior. Use simple labels. I finish, I show up, I execute. Let those labels guide your choices. And protect streaks, but don't worship them. Track your reps to reinforce who you are. Let the streak be proof of consistency. But if you break it, don't spiral. Restart immediately. Because identity isn't about perfection, it's about recovery. The person who misses once and returns the next day is still consistent. The person who misses once and quits for a week is not. The difference isn't the miss, it's the restart. The promises that rebuild trust. Make smaller promises, not because you're lowering your standards, but because you're rebuilding trust. Your brain doesn't believe big promises right now. It's heard them before. So start with promises you can't fail to keep. I'll write one sentence. I'll move for 5 minutes. I'll make one call. Tiny, guaranteed wins. Keep those promises fiercely. No exceptions, no negotiations. If you said you'd do it, you do it. Let your word become solid again. And once you've stacked enough small wins, your brain starts to believe you. Then and only then you can increase the difficulty, but not before. Trust first, intensity later. Focus on show-up goals, not outcome goals. Don't measure success by results. Measure it by action. Did you show up? Did you do the work? That's the win. Let outcomes lag behind behavior without panic, because outcomes are delayed, behavior is immediate, and identity cares about reps, not results. The results will come, but only if the reps keep happening. Use the mirror question daily. When you're deciding what to do next, ask, what would a doer do next? Not, what do I feel like doing? Not, what's easiest? Just, what would the person I'm becoming do right now? Then do that. Answer with action, not analysis. Repeat this until it's automatic, until you don't have to ask anymore because you already know. What happens when identity takes over? When you get this right, you'll notice a shift. At first, you'll just trust yourself again. You'll keep daily commitments more reliably. You'll feel less self-doubt because the evidence is stacking. You'll stop needing external validation to act because you have internal proof. That's the good outcome. Keep going, and habits start to run without willpower. Starting feels easier because identity is doing the heavy lifting. You execute even when you're bored or stressed because that's just who you are now. Your baseline performance rises. What used to require maximum effort now happens on autopilot. That's the excellent outcome. The best outcome? Execution becomes your personality. You don't debate action. You embody it. People rely on your consistency because you've become the person who always follows through. And your results compound naturally over time because you're not chasing them. You're just being you. And the results are a byproduct of that identity. The traps that kill identity. Watch for this. Tying identity only to outcomes. You feel like a fraud during slow progress phases. You quit when results lag because you think the lack of visible wins means you're not that person. But that's wrong. Identity is built on showing up, not on winning. Tie your identity to the action, not the outcome. The outcomes will follow, but only if you stay in the game. Another trap, becoming a streak slave. You panic if the streak is threatened. You choose easy reps just to maintain it, even when they're meaningless. But a streak without substance is just a number. Use minimum standards to keep reps meaningful. The streak should reflect real effort, not just box checking. And don't label yourself after one slip. You miss a day and say, I'm back to square one. You withdraw all the self-trust you've built. But one miss doesn't erase your identity. It's just a blip in the average. Restart immediately. Let the recovery be part of the identity too. Because resilient people don't avoid failure. They just don't stay down. The long game you're finally ready for. You've spent this entire book learning how to act despite feelings, build discipline, remove negotiation, start anyway, embrace discomfort, win bad days, and now build an identity that makes all of it automatic. These aren't separate skills. They're layers, and each layer supports the next. But there's one final piece, one last shift that locks everything in place and turns this from a system you follow into a life you live. Because right now, you're still thinking in chapters. You're still treating this like a project with an end date, but the real power comes when you stop thinking about it at all. When execution becomes so deeply woven into who you are that it's no longer a choice, it's just what happens. The final chapter will show you how to live this code for the long haul, how to let it run in the background while you build the life you actually want, and how to make sure that 5 years from now, you're not back where you started. Because the goal isn't to finish this book. The goal is to never need it again. Chapter 9, Live the Code. You made it. Most people don't. They read the first chapter, nod along, feel inspired for a day, then drift back into the same patterns that brought them here. but you're still reading, which means you're different, or at least you're ready to be. This final chapter isn't about learning something new. It's about locking in everything you've already learned so it becomes permanent. Because knowing what to do and actually doing it are two different things. And the gap between them, that's where most lives get stuck. You've spent 8 chapters building the foundation. Feelings don't run the show. Discipline beats motivation. Negotiation kills momentum. Starting breaks inertia. Discomfort builds capacity. Bad days test character. And identity makes it all automatic. Now it's time to stitch those pieces together into one simple, repeatable way of living. A code you can follow when everything else falls apart. A system that runs in the background while you build the life you actually want. This is where it all comes together. And this is where you decide whether this book was entertainment or transformation. What you've actually built. Let's be clear about what just happened. You didn't just read a book. You built a new operating system. The old one ran on feelings. It waited for the right mood, the perfect conditions, the ideal moment, and it kept you stuck in a loop of starting and stopping, trying and quitting, planning and never executing. The new system runs on action. It doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what's next. It doesn't wait for motivation. It follows the schedule. It doesn't negotiate. It executes. And over time, that system rewires your brain. Hard things start to feel normal. Normal things start to feel easy. And what used to require maximum willpower now happens on autopilot. You learned that feelings are data, not commands. They're signals from a survival system that's optimized for comfort, not growth. So you stopped obeying them. You practiced acting independent of emotional weather. You replaced feel then do with do then feel. And you proved over and over that action creates the feelings you were waiting for, not the other way around. You built discipline through fixed schedules and non-negotiables. You removed the daily decision of whether to act and replaced it with a simple rule. This is what happens at this time. You installed personal laws that shut down internal bargaining. And you created minimum standards that keep habits alive even on days when you're running on fumes. You reframed discomfort as growth. You stopped treating hard as a warning sign and started treating it as a compass pointing toward expansion. You trained resilience by showing up on bad days. And you built an execution-based identity through evidence, one kept promise at a time, one completed rep at a time, until your brain had no choice but to believe you. This isn't theory anymore. This is who you're becoming. The power you now hold. Here's what this gives you. Control. Not over your circumstances, not over other people, not over outcomes, but over yourself, over your trajectory, over the one variable that actually determines the size of your life, your actions. You're no longer waiting for motivation to arrive. You're no longer at the mercy of your moods. You're no longer stuck in the cycle of good intentions and broken promises. You choose action based on standards, and you execute regardless of how you feel. That makes you dangerous, not to others, to your old limits. You've gained something most people never find: calm confidence. Not the loud, showy kind that needs constant validation, the quiet kind that comes from self-trust. And self-trust comes from one place: follow-through. Every time you do what you said you'd do, you deposit proof into the account. And over time, that proof compounds into unshakable confidence. You trust yourself because you've earned it. This changes how you show up in relationships, too. You stop flaking on plans and promises. People start to trust your word because you trust your word. Your consistency creates stability for others. They know you'll show up. They know you'll follow through. And that reliability makes you someone people want in their corner. You also stop dumping your bad days onto the people around you. You don't react from impulse. You respond from values. You act with intention, not emotion. And that makes relationships feel safer, cleaner, stronger. Because people aren't dealing with your mood swings anymore. They're dealing with you, the stable, reliable version of you that shows up regardless of internal weather. What you can do now that you couldn't before. You can execute on priority goals consistently, not in bursts, not when you feel inspired, steadily. You start tasks without needing a perfect mood. You finish more because you begin more, and you stack results over time instead of chasing them in frantic sprints that always end in burnout. You recover from setbacks fast. You don't spiral after a miss. You don't let one bad day become a bad week. You return to minimum standards immediately. You protect your identity through quick resets, and that resilience, that ability to get back on track without drama, is what separates long-term winners from people who are always starting over. You've also unlocked something most people never experience, the compounding effect of consistency. Because here's the secret nobody tells you. Continuing gets easier, not harder. The first month is brutal. The second month is tough. But by month 6, the habits are running on autopilot. By month 12, you're not forcing anything. You're just being who you are. And the results? They're stacking faster than you ever thought possible. Why it gets easier, not harder. Your brain is a prediction machine. It's constantly updating its models based on what you do. And when you practice action first long enough, the predictions change. Hard things become normal. Normal things become easy. And what used to feel impossible starts to feel like just another Tuesday. Repetition makes action automatic. Automatic action needs less willpower. Less willpower means more consistency, and more consistency means bigger results with less effort. This is the long game. This is why people who stick with it for years seem to glide while everyone else is grinding. They're not superhuman. They've just automated the hard parts. Identity carries you when life gets loud. You don't negotiate who you are. You don't debate whether to show up. You act like an executor because that's your baseline now. Feelings become background noise. They're still there. You're not a robot, but they don't control behavior anymore. They're just weather, and you've learned to act in any weather. This is the payoff. This is what you've been building toward. A life where execution is effortless because it's automatic, where progress is inevitable because it's built into who you are, where you don't need this book anymore because the code is running in your bones. Your first move. Close this book right now and choose one non-negotiable for tomorrow. Not 3, not 5, 1. Pick the action that matters most, the one that, if done daily, would move your life forward even if nothing else happened. Put it at a fixed time. Write it down. Remove every escape hatch. No, unless I'm tired. No, if I feel like it. Just, this happens at this time. Define the minimum standard for that action. What's the smallest version you'll do even on a bad day? Write that down too. Then commit to never miss twice. You'll miss days. That's fine. But you won't miss 2 in a row, because 2 is a pattern. 2 is the start of a slide. 1 is just data. 2 is identity erosion. Protect the identity by getting back on track immediately. Track completion only, not mood, not effort, not how it felt. Just, did you do it? Yes or no? Let that be the scoreboard, and let the streak build. Not because the streak is magic, but because it's proof. Proof that you're becoming someone different, someone who keeps their word, someone who executes. The truth you need to hear. You don't need a better mood. You need a better move. Your feelings will follow your behavior, not lead it. Every rep you do while you don't feel like it is a vote for your future. Every time you act despite resistance, you're casting a ballot for the person you're becoming. And those votes add up. They compound. They turn into an identity so solid that nothing can shake it. This is how you stop being almost ready and become unstoppable. Not by waiting for the perfect moment, not by finding the right motivation, not by fixing your feelings first, by acting now, by moving despite the noise, by proving, one rep at a time, that you're the kind of person who does what they say. Finish today like the person you're becoming. Act once, right now, to prove this book wasn't just entertainment. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for the perfect setup. Don't wait for anything. This is the moment. This is the test. And what you do in the next 5 minutes will tell you everything you need to know about whether you're serious. The code you'll live by. Act first. Repeat daily. Choose hard. Protect your code. Let feelings follow. That's it. 5 rules. Simple enough to remember, hard enough to matter, and powerful enough to change everything. Act first means you move before you feel ready. You don't wait for permission from your mood. You execute based on pre-decided standards, and you let confidence build from the proof. Repeat daily means you show up even when you don't want to. You protect the streak. You honor minimum standards. You never miss twice. Because consistency is the engine, and the engine only works if it runs. Choose hard means you lean into discomfort on purpose. You schedule the difficult tasks. You embrace the friction. You train resilience by doing hard things when you don't have to, so you can do them when you need to. Protect your code means you don't negotiate. You don't renegotiate your laws in the moment of discomfort. You follow the rules you set when your head was clear, and you treat your word to yourself as non-negotiable. Let feelings follow means you stop expecting emotions to lead. You acknowledge them, you allow them, but you don't obey them. You act, and you let the feelings catch up later, because they will. They always do. This code isn't a suggestion. It's not a nice idea to try when you feel inspired. It's the operating system for the life you want. And it works, not because it's complicated, because it's simple, and simplicity, repeated over time, is what builds empires. The life waiting on the other side. 5 years from now, you'll look back at this moment, and you'll either see it as the turning point, the day you stopped waiting and started becoming, or you'll see it as another book you read and forgot. The difference won't be talent, it won't be circumstances, it won't be luck. It'll be one decision repeated daily. Did you act or did you wait? The people who act build lives that compound. Their skills stack, their results multiply. Their confidence becomes unshakable because it's built on a mountain of proof. They don't need motivation because they have identity. They don't need perfect conditions because they've trained in chaos. And they don't need this book anymore because the code is running automatically. The people who wait stay stuck. They keep searching for the next system, the next hack, the next secret. They keep starting over. They keep trying, and they keep wondering why nothing ever changes. You've read this far. You've learned the code. You know what to do. The only question left is, will you do it? Take action. Stop caring how you feel. That's the code. That's the life. That's the person you're becoming. Now close this book and prove it.